G'day, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another crazy dose of net zero and EV insanity in MGUY EV news for Friday the 11th of October 2024. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss another MGUY video. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Those of you who remember the Mercedes EQE fire in an underground car park in Seoul, South Korea, will remember that the South Korean government instructed EV manufacturers to disclose the manufacturers of their batteries. And Mercedes said, oh, well, we use a very reputable battery maker in China called CATL, C-A-T-L. But it turns out they were telling porkies. Yes. Mercedes-Benz EV owners in Korea sue automaker over purported misinformation of battery cell supplier. Oh, this is terrible. A group of Mercedes-Benz electric vehicle owners in Korea have sued the German automaker, alleging the company of providing misleading information over their vehicle's battery cell supplier, their legal representative said Thursday. Ha Yong-sun, an attorney at Seoul-based law firm Naru, held a press conference in Seoul and announced that 24 Mercedes-Benz EQE EV owners filed the joint damages claim with the Seoul Central District Court against company headquarters, its Korean sales unit, and 7 dealership firms in the country. The initial claim was for 10 million won per plaintiff, with plans to increase the amount after the Fair Trade Commission announces the result of an investigation into the alleged false advertising by Mercedes-Benz. The topic of EV battery cell suppliers had been closely watched matter within the auto industry recently, following a massive fire caused by a Mercedes-Benz EQE model that ended up damaging over 100 vehicles and destroying an underground apartment parking garage in Incheon, west of Seoul, in August. To the surprise of many, battery cells used in the EV in question turned out to be from Fisa Energy, a Chinese firm known to be ranked at around 10th globally. Plaintiffs claimed that while most EQE models were revealed to be equipped with battery cells from Fisa Energy, Mercedes-Benz allegedly deceived consumers by suggesting the vehicles were fitted with cells from CATL, the global leader in EV battery sales. They also pointed out how Krzysztof Starzyński, former Mercedes-Benz vice president of car engineering, was quoted as saying in an interview with Korean news outlets in April 2022 that battery cells in EQE vehicles will be supplied by CATL. Wow. This is turning from bad to worse for Mercedes. Not only did they cause the fire in allegedly, the battery caused the fire in the underground car park. The car wasn't even charging at the time. It was just sitting there doing nothing. But now they've been allegedly been a little bit economical with the truth about where they get their batteries from, and they might not be as good quality as they originally said. Well, if you need any more evidence why you shouldn't be driving a Tesla in autopilot mode, I think this video will probably do it for you. Tesla crashes into road barrier while operating on autopilot. This is the shocking moment a Tesla crashes into a road barrier while seemingly in autopilot mode. So I'll have to pixelate this out or else I'll get demonetized, but go and look at it in the link in the description. It's quite shocking, quite shocking. Let's watch. Car approaches, goes straight through the barriers and hits a concrete barrier that's behind it. It's absolutely shocking. A lesson for all of us, just don't go anywhere near self-driving cars. So if you think EVs are bad, EV trucks are worse, and EV aviation is just pure madness. There's never going to be enough energy density in batteries to power heavier than air aircraft. Maybe at some point in the future we'll have some kind of nuclear device that can generate electricity for motors, for the engines, but right now it's just a dead end. And so what a surprise, RollsRoyce switches off electrical business after sale fails to progress. Rolls-Royce is to close its electrical business after having failed to find a buyer for the fledgling unit. Chief Executive Tufan Ergin Bilgic announced in November last year that the UK headquartered firm was looking to divest Rolls-Royce Electrical, part of a series of disposals of non-core operations. But despite suggestions early in the process that a sale was imminent, no transaction ever materialised. Now Rolls-Royce is moving to close the business, Flight Global understands, confirming reports first published by Aviation Week. However, precisely what is being axed at this stage is unclear, save for the fact that Rolls-Royce is exiting the Advanced Air Mobility AAM business. That includes the products it was developing for urban and regional air mobility applications, such as electric propulsion units rated at 150 kilowatts and 320 kilowatts, and a turbo generator built around a clean sheet gas turbine. So that is one of the phenomenal, quite remarkable things about fossil fuel, is just how much energy there is in something as easily stored and transported as liquid fuel. There's nothing that comes close to it. And while we might mess around with silly electric cars, when the going gets tough, like it does in aviation, there is no way that batteries and motors will ever power heavier than air flight. As I say, at some point in the future, there may be some device that relies on nuclear technology to produce a huge amount of electricity in a small volume and mass, but right now it's just fantasy, and finally Rolls-Royce have realised this for themselves. So you'd have to be pretty stupid in that case to start putting in chargers in airports for aircraft that A, don't exist, and B, aren't likely to exist. Oh wait, what's this? 6 airports want to charge ahead, preparing for electric aircraft. All electric passenger planes are still experimental. Yes, they are vaporware, but regional airport managers are eager to install charging infrastructure to accommodate them. What? Why would anybody waste or invest money in this kind of fantasy? The managers of half a dozen Washington airports see a future where you could hop across Puget Sound or the Cascade Mountains in minutes on a non-polluting electric commuter plane or air taxi. They want to be ready for the day by winning government funding. Yes, that's taxpayer money. That's taxpayers' money from their pockets to install pricey charging stations for battery-powered aircraft now. A bunch of manufacturers have flown small prototypes of all-electric passenger aircraft, but none are certified for commercial service in North America. The electric aviation sector is still at a very early stage where many things are unclear, including key questions such as what charging standard to use and whether rechargeable batteries will even be broadly adopted for flight propulsion. Well, I can tell you right now, they won't be. And in what mad universe would you build chargers for planes that don't exist? This has to be one of the craziest net zero EV electrification stories I've seen. That they can waste so much money on chargers for aircraft that doesn't even exist. Brilliant. So if you've been with the channel for a while, you'll know that there are a bunch of automakers that are just running as fast as they can away from EVs and rapidly blowing the dust off their internal combustion engine production lines. And the latest to do this is Skoda. Skoda reconsiders its stance on electric cars. Skoda is adjusting its approach to electric vehicles, EVs, due to slower than expected demand. Zero demand, pushing back the launch of new electric models and extending the production of its petrol and diesel cars. Skoda had ambitious plans to accelerate the sale of its electric cars, starting with the L-Rock. The company had lined up additional models, including the smaller, more affordable Epic, a 7-seater SUV, a station wagon, and updated versions of the Enyaq and Enyaq Coupe. These plans are now being delayed, with a new electric hatchback pushed to 2027 or even 2028. Skoda's brand manager Klaus Zellmer confirmed the postponement in an interview with Autocar. To be completely honest, because the transition to battery electric cars is going slower, we are going through that timeline, he said. Yes, indeed. Well, we've heard it all before. They'll keep pushing it back because I can't imagine sales of EVs picking up significantly in the near future. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And across the Dutch in New Zealand, electric car owners face up to $40 ACC levy hike, says Drive Electric. So the ACC is like a compulsory third-party insurance scheme over there. And governments are realizing that they're losing a lot of money with people buying EVs because they don't have to pay road tax, so they're having to claw this back as quickly as possible. Hikes to ACC levies will see owners of electric cars paying up to $40 more than owners of hybrids or small petrol cars, says an electric vehicle lobby group. Oh dear, how sad, never mind. Drive Electric's submission to ACC says electric car owners will pay $109 a year, while owners of fuel-efficient hybrid petrol vehicles could pay just $69 and efficient petrol cars $93. Spokeswoman Kirsten Corson says the proposal is really poor timing after the government scrapped cash incentives for EVs, imposed higher road user charges and weakened tailpipe emission standards for car imports. Yeah, well, it's tough when reality bites, but that's exactly what happens because governments realise that they're not getting anywhere near the amount of revenue that they need to make up the shortfall from vehicle duty that's been scrapped for EVs. So, yeah, welcome to the real world. Unfortunate story, but you've got to laugh, really, because Fisa, that, gift that keeps on giving, it's heading towards bankruptcy, but it can't even sell its assets because of a computer problem. Computer says no. Fisa bankruptcy hits major speed bump as fleet sale is now in question. Fisa's Chapter 11 bankruptcy has hit a major snag as the company buying the startup's remaining fleet of electric SUVs says it might not complete the purchase because of a surprising technical issue. The buyer, a New York area leasing company called American Lease, says in a new filing that Fisa now believes there is no way to transfer the information connected to each SUV to a new server, not owned by the bankrupt EV startup. Since American Lease needs that information to operate the vehicles after Fisa is dissolved, the leasing company has filed an emergency objection to the startup's liquidation plan. Fisa was expected to have that plan confirmed in bankruptcy court as early as this Wednesday. Well, this is just another one of the problems with EVs and connected cars, basically, is that they are like a gadget. They have internet connectivity, they need connections to servers, and they need to download and upload data. And so as soon as that fails, the car fails. No longer do you have a car that is, might have a radio in it that just receives data. Now we're sending data everywhere. And yeah, this is the kind of nonsense that happens when we push to turn our cars into gadgets, disposable gadgets. And as an owner of a classic MG Midget from 1970 or 71, I can never remember, this really upsets me because in Sadiq Khan's mad push for ULEZ in London, people are just scrapping classic cars because they can't afford to keep them anymore and drive them in London because they don't meet the emissions targets that are being set, ridiculous emissions targets. Hundreds of rare classic models destroyed in the ULEZ scrappage scheme. A month after the ULEZ scrappage schemes ended, a new report has found that many drivers traded in classic models that were not exempt from the £12.50 daily fee. A motoring expert has taken to YouTube to share the staggering number of classic cars that were destroyed by London drivers in the ULEZ scrappage scheme. Introduced across the capital ahead of the ULEZ expansion, the scheme allowed drivers to get £2,000, which is nothing, for their non-compliant vehicle in order to prevent having to pay a £12.50 daily fee in the area. However, Shahzad Sheikh, who goes by the name Brown Car Guy, I'll link to the video as well, in the description, warned that the scrappage scheme saw many owners getting rid of iconic models. In a recent video, he recalled fearing this issue when the scheme was first proposed in 2022. He explained, for those of us who love cars that have a bit of history and character, the idea of amazing potential future classics cars being crushed into oblivion is heart-wrenching, to be honest with you. Yes, it absolutely is. I talked about this in 2022 and I warned about the risk posed to automotive heritage because of schemes like this, but I will tell you that in the previous scrappage scheme, 2009, we lost cars like the BMW 2002, the original Audi Quattro, yikes, 9 Trump Spitfires, 731 classic Jaguars, including 45 of the beautiful XJS model, as driven by Simon Templar, the saint. Well, Sadiq Khan doesn't give a flying you-know-what about motorists or their cars, so he doesn't care. So this will not be a problem for him. Water off a duck's back, but very sad for classic car fans like me and this guy as well, by the looks of it. And in shock story of the week, BP goes back to making oil and gas. Wow, who'd have thought that they needed to do that? Well, it's because they went woke and wanted to get all in on electric stuff and, get away from fossil fuels, which have been their lifeblood for the last God knows how many decades that they've been in business. But no, they were all too quick to jump on the electrification and green bandwagon. And guess what? Yeah, they've had to turn 180 degrees. BP's green stupidity beggared belief. No wonder it's reversed course. Britain's oil giants have learned to stick to their knitting the hard way. There are 7 so-called super major oil companies in the world, of which 3 are American, 1 is French and another is Italian. Perhaps surprisingly, the other 2 are based and domiciled here in Britain, BP and Shell. I say surprisingly not just because it's unusual to see such a high concentration of global leaders in their industry based in Britain, but also because we now have a government that doesn't care a fig about their future. Absolutely right. Indeed, it would seemingly much prefer it if such exemplars of big oil weren't here at all. Of course they would. As net zero evangelism reached fever pitch, both BP and Shell did their best to blow with the political wind by announcing ambitious plans to transition to greener energy sources. It is something that BP had been toying with for decades. We need to reinvent the energy business, John Brown, BP's then chief executive, said more than 20 years ago. We need to go beyond petroleum. BP's first attempt at rebranding itself a green energy champion proved to be something of a false start. In short order, BP was at the centre of one of the largest oil spills in Alaskan history, a deadly explosion at a major Texas oil refinery, and finally the Deepwater Horizon oil rig disaster. More to the point, the expansion into solar and wind farms proved to be a costly and wholly predictable failure. With vast fines and compensation payments to make, BP quietly abandoned its Beyond Petroleum rebranding and closed or sold off much of its portfolio of renewable assets. But that wasn't the end of it. As the political pressure for delivering net zero targets mounted, BP soon came back for more. Bernard Looney, perfect name, a new chief executive, was appointed to oversee a 40% reduction in oil and gas output by 2030. Well, I'll let you read the rest of the article in the description, link in the description. But this just goes to show how the woke mind virus can just infect even these big companies, and these what you'd think were sensible CEOs just get this little thing in their head about green energy, and then they just can't get out of it. They cannot get away from it, and they do mad things like this. Well, at least they've seen the writing on the wall and are reversing their decision. And finally, this story just goes to show how absolutely mad the UK is in terms of its net zero EV nonsense transition. This is only going to get worse under Mad Ed Miliband, who must have been dropped on his head as a baby. That's the only explanation. Anger at UK's bonkers plan to reach net zero by importing fuel from North Korea. You literally couldn't make this stuff up, could you? A plan by the British government to burn biomass imported from countries including North Korea and Afghanistan has been described as bonkers. Correctly so, with critics saying it undermines the credibility of the UK's climate strategy. A bioenergy resource model published in late summer calculates that only a big expansion in the import of energy crops and wood from a surprising list of nations would satisfy the UK's plan to meet net zero. In a strategy document published last year and since seemingly adopted by the new Labour government, well it would be, the Sunak government said it wanted biomass to play a significant role in decarbonising all sectors of the economy in the years leading up to 2050. Previous administrations have provided more than £20 billion. That buys a lot of nurses, that does, to businesses using it in the power and heat sectors over the past 2 decades. Yeah, well, I'm not surprised that Sunak was behind all this. He was just as bad as Labour on net zero. Hopefully we will eventually get some governments in the West who are prepared to say the hard words, which is, we're not doing net zero. That would be what I'd like to see. We're abandoning, scrapping net zero completely. That's what they should do in the US. They should do it here. Should certainly do it in Britain as well. And just get on with life. All right, that's it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. Really hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next one. Bye for now.